who people are voting for and under the conditions. Let's talk about what is going on. I think it's really important. A lot of times, a lot of people don't talk about India. Let's talk about the geopolitics of India. Let's bring up the first article, Jamie, if we could. It says, Lok Sabha, Indians are voting in scorching heat as temperatures cross 40 C. Is that Celsius?
So 40 Celsius. So Lok Sabha is one of their houses, right? One of the houses of the government. So they're just talking about
that's a house of government. Lok Sabha,
one of the parliamentary bodies. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so it just says it's hot. People are voting. You start looking at the numbers of how many people are voting. We can just go on to the next one, right? People are overcoming all sorts of obstacles, be it weather, be it traveling distances, and just it's a feat, right? People are talking about how many people vote in the Indian democracy, and it's
in the Lok Sabha. Is the BJP in the majority of the parties right now? Where's the BJP?
They have the majority.
BJP is Modi's government. So
that's the political party. It's a parliamentary system. Yeah. It's complicated in that it's not a two-party system, and there's many alliances. And even though you're a local party, you're affiliated with the majority or minority party, BJP or Congress. Yeah. And in that way, yes, the BJP has majority in both houses.
They do.
And they've been able to implement a lot of things with Modi as prime minister and two houses of government. And the state governments are very powerful there also. There's 30 states in India.
Okay.
30 states in India. They have a chief minister, CM, like a governor.
Yeah.
And then they have their own local bodies like we do a state assembly, state senate, parliamentary system. And so there's, depending on the size of the state, right, that state government can be very powerful. And depending on the state, it's the same thing as in America, different parties in power, different dynamics, different electorate, different economic points, different cultural points that politicians are making.
Let's talk about Modi for a second before we move on to the next article. You said before, Modi's not corrupt, right? There was a party, there's the anti-corrupt party. There was a guy who was running, and he got caught selling liquor licenses illegally. So he's now in jail. And that was part of the corrupt party. But you did make a comment. The anti-corruption party. You did make a comment. I'm sorry if it's getting a little hot in here too. I can open the window. Answer me the question when it says the Modi. You say Modi is not corrupt. However, he does have a heavy hand, would you say he has a heavy Hindu cabinet or Hindi cabinet and ideology? Because we hear from the criticisms from the synthetic left in America that, they use this term Hindu fascist. And we've heard like Ro Khanna talk about him too before as well. What was it called? The Hindutva, and how it was being misused by Modi and his government. And there's a lot of people like Ilhan Omar who've been critical, and a lot of people we know on the synthetic left. I call them, they're not the real left. Because for them to wag their finger at what's going on in India, not knowing everything there, to me, is a little absurd. I'm going to open the window while you tell this story, but please go on.
No, I'm in that same place where, again, as an American, as somebody born here, looking at Indian politics, I don't know all of the history. I don't know everything that's been happening there. I've paid more attention recently, and it's even this term, right? Hindutva, right? Hindu nationalism. The movement to create a Hindu Rashtra, right? Even just talking about that, most of your viewers probably aren't familiar with that terminology and what that means or how it would be implemented. And I've had conversations with a whole range of folks who want it, who don't want it, who criticize it for being in that line.
The Hindutva,
and people who support it as a way to protect Hinduism, right? After colonization, after the Mughal Empire, after the attempted genocide or ethnocide of the Hindu civilization for centuries. Some people would say, there needs to be some defense of Hinduism, of Hindu civilization and culture and ideas. And even that word Hindu, and this is where my education, and I'm not speaking on behalf of, but I work for Hindu University of America. And I had no idea some of this history and the terminology and how it came to be. And even the word Hindu, it as an exonym, right? Exonym, what other people call us, right? Endonym is what we call ourselves, right? Internal name, external name. So Hindu is an external name. And even that, it came about for a long time. People say, because it was east of the Sindh River, they couldn't say Hind, and so Hindu, Hindustan. There's the formal process. The British, when they were trying to get a grasp of this jewel of their colonial empire, they came in and said, everyone who's not a Christian, Muslim, or Jew is a Hindu.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody who's somebody that we understand from the Abrahamic faith.
Yeah.
Is labeled because we understand them. But
by process of elimination. But if you're not one of the Abrahamic, okay.
But all the Buddhists, all the Sikhs, all the Jains, right? I'm Vaishno. So within the Hindu terminology, Brahman, the overall universal Godhead concept of oneness of the universe, God, Brahman. That's
not Vishnu.
No, and then that's broken up into three kind of other aspects, right? Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. So within those three next level of the oneness of the universe, those gods also, but second tier or primary gods have different roles, right? Brahman, the creator of the universe, Vishnu, which is Vaishno, which is my sampradaya of Hinduism, like a denomination.
Vishnu,
and so Vishnu and preserver in that context has taken avatars during the history of humanity to educate and inform, right? So going back to Matsya, the fish, or Ram, or Krishna, Buddha. And then you might have some people say that Vishnu, the preserver, has taken human form throughout history. And Jesus Christ was an incarnation in that same way of the Holy Trinity, right? There's different ways that you can bridge build and from that common perspective or understanding.
Yes. What you're saying that's a lot more complex, that people try to make it simplify it, whatnot, and they kind of put you in one corner, but there's many aspects of Hinduism itself.
And then Shaivism, that has a whole sampradaya. That's a whole different kind of Hinduism, right? If you're worshiping the preserver or the destroyer, you have a whole different kind of cosmology. But all of these, including Jains, Sikhs, Buddhists, everyone got called Hindu by the British.
I want to get this in front of you so we don't miss this.
Got called Hindu by the British as a way to what? Control and convert. To colonize.
Good.
And so that layer
of
purpose and motivation permeates and pervades everything the West understands about India, and they don't even know it, right?
Okay, let's talk about this. By the way, Ankur just laid out for him that the Patel that Al Pacino was talking to and Glenn Ross, he's not that Patel, because he said even if Shiva told him to come down here and sign the deal, Patel wouldn't sign it. So it's a different Patel. And he said that, and the god Vishnu too. Get out of here. He told him that. So we know that Ankur is not that Hindu. Okay, let's talk about this though. And I asked you this question before because I met a lot of Hindu people when I started following Tulsi Gabbard and had access to her campaign, right? The first Hindu representative. And there's been a lot of her demonizing anytime she went to talk to Modi. Modi gave her, what's the book that she used to swear on?
The Bhagavad Gita.
The
Gita.
The Gita. They criticized that. We know people from the synthetic left, not mentioning their names, but how they created this term Hindu fascist. But I've spoke to some Hindus here that are not really fond of Modi too as well. They're a little bit more liberal, whatnot. There is this kind of argument when you meet a lot of Hindu people in the United States. They seem to have more of an acceptance or accepting of an apology of the history of what the Brits and the West did to them, rather than the Muslim people that they were pitted against to fight, right? So when we talk about India, we talk about the colonizers coming in and pitting Hindus, all of the Hindus against all of the Muslims, whether they were like, they were Sunni or Shia, it doesn't make a difference. They pitted Hindus and Muslims against each other, yet they seem to get a pass from a lot of the Hindus that have acclimated into Western society, right? As opposed to giving forgiveness to their Muslim brothers and sisters who were purposely pit against them. What do you say to that? Because you know what I'm talking about, right? You understand you talk to a lot of Hindus, they're like conservatives can be, they're Donald Trump supporters. Donald Trump went to Howdy for Modi. This is something we talked about earlier. Tulsi Gabbard couldn't go because she was running as a Democrat and she got belittled for even being on the schedule that she had to make up a schedule change. I was so pissed off because I'm like, this is a whole opportunity for Hindus to vote for you in the primaries, register as Democrat to vote for you. Instead, you're letting them all go to Donald Trump here. Give us a little kind of insight to your thoughts about the Hindu kind of mentality in the United States, which is very, very, against the Muslims, what they're doing, as opposed to forgiving the Brits for what they did to them.
That's a good point. It's interesting. It's complex. It's kind of right. I do have that feeling in terms of the decolonial process that Hindus are now going through, right? and again, the language that we use, the way that the British really took over our education system systematically and strategically, that was intentionally done so that the British and the European colonial project would be looked upon favorably by the Hindu population, right? And so part of that is just the propaganda and the narrative that has been accepted, but also once you start digging into the history, you see that both sides use violence, right? Everyone used violence, but the kind of violence that Muhammad of Ghazni and Khilji used, and all these other folks who are now celebrated within the Islamic framework, and the kind of brutality and just
you have a President Modi who and
Prime Minister
Modi who is celebrated, but what I hear is opposition is critics talk about what is it what were the riots called again? What were they called?
So they call them the Gujarat riots.
Yes. Okay.
But so Gujarat is a whole state, so it's not a Gujarat riot. The Godhra riots, and you look at what happened first. Something like 60 Hindu pilgrims were murdered, alive, butchered, sent back on the Sabarmati Express, the train that I've taken, right, as a message to the Hindus there. And so what ended up happening was a reciprocal pogrom, right? Some Hindus got together and it turned into a mob, and they ended up attacking innocent people and targeted people, and people had lists apparently, and all of that. And the levy is that then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Modi, of that state, didn't do enough and maybe even instigated the violence.
He said, let them vent, was I think the criticism. And I'm not, once again, people don't talk about what happened beforehand to ignite that,
and so that's the mentality, right? Let them vent. If I don't know who said that or when it was said exactly, but that is the mentality, right? In both sides. It's every time that there is an overreach, then what is the solution, or what is available to the masses? Protests, rioting, right? That's the language of. But I don't want to equivocate either, because in 1947, partition was more violence committed one way than the other, even though it's equivocated, right? In 1971, the Bangladeshi Hindu genocide, that people don't know about it. 1991, the Kashmiri exodus, they talk about it friendly. Oh, it was an exodus, but the movie that was made, the Kashmir Files, was levied as Islamophobic because it too visually represented what happened.
Okay.
So you have this history of violence, some would say genocidal or at least ethnocidal violence to convert, by both Christians and Muslims at different time frames. And what is stuck in the Hindu consciousness for a range of factors is one more than the other. Mm-hmm. And different people would probably think of it differently, right? Depending on which form of colonization or conquest you suffered under, or you read more about, you understood more, or you is personally related.
People lack the history to make an informed decision moving forward. They pick things up from and this is the situation with the Russian Ukrainians. They talk about the day that Russia's started their military operations. They don't go back to 2014. Talk about everything that led up to that, and they do the same thing in India as well. Exactly. Modi does have a big majority of votes from the Muslim population in India, and I saw that before, and that's what always makes well, wait a second.
I don't know if the majority of Muslims,
but he does have a big
30% is a number that I saw.
Something ridiculous where there's how many Muslims are there in India?
300, 200 million. 200,
and he's got over 50 million Muslims voting for him.
Something like that.
It also says in the next article, if you can bring that up over there, Jamie, that Modi is cast his vote in a giant election that reaches the halfway mark. Give us a little talk about our symbols up there, buddy.
Yeah, so that idea of the halfway mark, right? Yes. We have election day.
It's a giant.
We have a primary, but again, giant in terms of maybe 700 million votes will be cast. I don't know. I don't know.
They'll get the results that night. How do they do it?
Exactly,
we can't do it.
Exactly.
Encore?
No.
So we're waiting for that when we get to that.
But the results are not announced right away, right? They have phases. So that's what this is getting at. There's 6 phases. Different states vote at different times. The electoral
people are engaged.
I think turnout is going to be pretty high. We'll see exactly what the number is. But then you have your electoral staff and representatives and commission going state by state, putting attention on it and running a proper election. And it's an impressive process, right?
So we have the third phase. The next one coming up. ABC News puts India votes in third phase of national election as Modi escalates his rhetoric against Muslims. We talked about how they do. Now you brought this article today, not me.
Yeah,
right?
I just kind of like searched a quick one just as an example, and you can get the. I don't know if I have another one that frames it the other way, right? It's for Hindus, right? Being for Hindus is against Muslims sometimes, even though depending
That
on
is the
what
argument.
he's saying
Yeah.
and how he's saying
Yeah.
it and what languages he's using, calling Muslims invaders, right? I think that's the crux of that, and that's again one of those mentalities that, depending on your scope of history and what framework you want to use to justify your political ideology or your policies, it's up to the politicians and then the voters to this is the dynamic that we have, and there's no doubt about it. Prime Minister Modi and the BJP are using their incumbency privilege in a way that is which is significant, right? They're getting people of other political parties to join their political party. They're getting them to swap and they're generally using the incumbent advantage to really
further their cause and further their vote and stuff. But listen, there has to be things that, as a nationalist, because nationalism is used in a dirty way. I hate that. Wanting to do for your country, I think, is great, especially when you're a country that's been oppressed and conquered like India for so long. Nationalism is good. Why wouldn't you want to do things for the benefit of Indians? What has he done for all people of India that we can say? Because I remember one of his first bills when he got in office was he built like millions of toilets.
Yeah, infrastructure.
Right? Infrastructure. But like where Indians couldn't go to the bathroom in certain places, now he's building infrastructure. Is there anything else you can point to in which makes Modi so popular as a nationalist for his country?
This is so interesting, and it's a difficult conversation because he's done a lot of symbolic things. He's given a lot of speeches. He's done the biggest one, right? That's jumped out, and he talked about it. 1,000-year kind of setting the wheel turning for Dharma for Hindus is Ayodhya, right? Suppose where Ram was born, right? And back in the early 90s, 92 was it, the Babri Masjid, which was built on the ruins of a destroyed Hindu mandir that was believed to be the birthplace of Ram. Ram being one of the prime deity, divine incarnations of figures in Hindu history, is destroyed, and there's a mosque there. And through a long process that not just Modi as prime minister, but the Hindu movement, the Hindutva movement, the Hindu nationalist movement, RSS, BJP, has been working on reclaiming that site and building a proper mandir to honor Ram, and they did. And now they're talking about the ramifications, the ripple effects, the economy, the addressing poverty, the tourism, the infrastructure that ties into that symbolic, and then using that as, again, a connecting point to other Hindu civilizational touch points and things that are emotional that people care about because this is their belief system. He's done that at a way that nobody has
industrialized
ever done.
India.
And so this is the other one.
India. And people don't talk about that.
And then again, as a
there could be some bad things there too. As Monsanto got in there, that sucks.
Exactly.
And
as from a more of a socialist economic framework, he's been on the more of the conservative, like the neoliberal economic framework, right? Privatization. He's got billionaire friends in Ambani and
he does.
and other folks who have benefited from this industrialization, from government contracts, from the privatization of ports and airports. But guess what? It's working for overall economic growth, right?
Yeah.
And then going to India and seeing the multitudes, right? How many people are living in what range of economic prosperity or poverty? It is, we're in Los Angeles, in North Hollywood. I see people living in tents too. So that bifurcation, that amount of resources that the industrialization of India has been able to do, how many people, and all the stats they talk about, more people on phones, people getting healthcare, people being able to travel, people having motorbikes, people having all these kind of industrial improvements. You still look at the distribution and how much people are making and what they're really living on compared to the people who are jet setting. That has, that's a criticism where, yes, the overall economic prosperity has increased, but at what level is that poverty increasing? What is that middle class actually able to afford? Where's the education? Where's the healthcare? Where's the environmental impacts? What are the child labor? Where is all those other? I'm not tapped into the Indian political system and the day-to-day lives of folks as I am here, but you can see the parallels, and you can point to, again, the benefits of the Modi government. Like another big one that he did that maybe backfired, maybe did benefit, but depending on which side you're on, you're like, it went one way or the other, was removing the large bills.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this whole thing, and I don't know how true it is.
There's
right?
a lot.
Pakistan is printing money,
Yeah.
Indian rupees, to subvert the Indian economy, and how true it is, how many bills are printed. You have all of that going on in America as well, but who catches it? Reacher. If you saw Jack Reacher and how that the forfeiting of US dollars, the forfeiting of Indian dollars, and then the way that he attacked that in a systematic way that caused a billion people to feel it. And was it executed well? Could it have been improved?
A lot of questionable things. It was banning Bitcoin at one time, banning Bitcoin mining, banning TikTok. There's a lot of other questionable things. Really quickly, we have to get to our guest. Our guest is here, but last question. Is Modi going to win in a landslide again?
Yeah.
And the BJP is going to gain more seats.
100 million more votes last time. It's like
you don't have to go for a second round after this.
No, this will be his third term, right? And both times the BJP and that alliance won by like 100 million votes.
Yeah,
not some electoral.
And he's coming out there like this. He's bowing.
Not
he's
some
like,
electoral college, a few thousand people here or there. You know, it's that's what.
No, really it's way over the top.
It was mind-boggling the scale that and again, because of all these tapping into that Hindu civilizational cause and culture, which is the vast majority, and he's walking a very, impressive line, and he's being more explicit over there versus and apparently it's working. You know, it's not walking.
Well, we said the last government was so awful there. Ankur Patel is predicting a big win for the BJP and Narendra Modi. Very interesting stuff. You got to come back again, be a regular on the show. I'm telling you, get your butt up here and come do the show. We'll talk Indian politics all the time. We'll educate people on what's going on there. We will talk about some of the things, bring new articles. I'd love to talk about it. I learned so much when I did follow the Tulsi Gabbard campaign about the BJP, about the RSS. I met members of the RSS, people who talked about it. It was totally different than what the mainstream media does over here. You saw ABC. He's being anti-Muslim. No, he was being pro-Hindu. They're going to twist it and use it now.
And he's guilty of using some rhetoric in certain places that is
very
inflammatory.
Now,
but like it's rhetoric, it's speechifying. It's in the same way that so many leaders around the world, you got to play to your base. Like that's
look.
There's
He's in
so
a very
many levels
spot now,
and as
he's part of BRICS. He's tightroping now. Like I said, Joe Biden, when he was at the BRICS one day, the next day he's at the G11. Biden made it a point to go over and walk and talk to him. It's like somebody said, make sure you go talk to Narendra Modi when you're there. It's important. Guys, that's it right now. Let's get to our guest. Our guest is hanging on. Modi is playing with BRICS. He's playing with everybody out there. He's doing mind games.